Hi everyone, I'm Shelley Marsh, the Executive Director of Reshet, and it's my privilege to present a number of educators here and filmmaker Malcolm Green. What we want to look at is some of our thoughts on how we educate future generations on Holocaust education. I just want to introduce our educators. We have got Harry Kelly from Noam Masorti Youth, Becky Tuck from Habonim Dror, Adam Nichols from BBYO, and Lauren Blum from RSY Netzer. I'm also delighted to welcome Malcolm Green, who is a filmmaker who has made a number of films, many of them with a lot of educational content, but the film that we're going to look at and have conversations about is a film called Edek. Malcolm, do you want to tell us a little bit about the concept of why you decided to make Edek?
Yeah, I mean, why did I decide to make Edek? Because I think the notion of Holocaust education is as important now as it's ever been, perhaps even more so, actually. You know, where everybody talks about the fact that we're interconnected and the world is interconnected. And I think that what that means is the lessons we learn from the Holocaust actually resonate and are always relevant. The lessons we've learned from the Holocaust, or the experiences that Holocaust survivors have and know, and the knowledge they know and the understanding they have, actually I think is going to become even more relevant over the next year, 2 years, than has been for ages.
So I just want to tease out a little bit about why you decided to use hip-hop.
Yeah, okay. I like hip-hop. I mean, I think, okay, there are a couple of reasons. Why do I want to, right. We always have to present those stories in the most impactful and again, relevant way possible to whoever our audience is. It must always appear fresh. When you're telling the same story over again, over a number of years, you have to find something new in it. You have to find a reason why it is relevant to today. But you have to make it new. You have to make it impactful and different. That's what I felt I had to do with that film. I had to make it feel contemporary and feel real and feel like it had relevance to an audience of young people's lives today. I think sometimes you have to surprise people, right? You have to find a different way in. You have to find another angle. You have to find a way that they weren't expecting. There's been amazing stuff that has been done. I've got to tell it in a different way. And I've got to tell it in a way that actually raises questions as well, so that your audience are interactive right from the start. So the first thing even they're saying is, why are you doing that? Exactly as you just asked, Shelley. Why are you doing that? Great. As soon as you get people asking questions, they're involved. They're not passive, they're interactive. So that was part of it. The other thing is, I found that when I was listening to a lot of hip hop, actually, to me, I found things there that kind of spoke to me. You know, originally one of the early titles for the film was called Ghetto to Ghetto, because I was seeing that hip hop was a music that actually originated in ghettos in the States, with all the challenges and all the racial challenges that were happening there, coming out of there. And there was a connection between the ghetto there and a ghetto there. What was happening there? So I wanted to kind of explore that.
So we're going to take a moment now and we're going to watch the film of Edek.
Edek. Well, I was born in 1932 in a town called Lvov. Right. We were Jewish.
I hope you're listening.
The war started when I was 7. I knew there was a war, but I didn't think there was anything wrong. first thing that happened, they started killing.
What?
Edek.
1932, born a Jew. Doesn't mean much to the likes of me and you. Oh, Janine, where have you been? What have you seen? A child on the run from a killer machine.
Edek. We lived on the second floor.
Okay.
And I heard one day the Gestapo shouting. And I heard one day the Gestapo. We hid in the hole under the wardrobe. And my father came running in and he said, the Germans are after me. We were Jewish. To escape, he jumped.
Jump, daddy, jump. Trying to get away, make a leap for freedom, just to live another day. Run, daddy, run, get up from the floor. Can't you hear them laughing while they're breaking down the door? Fly, daddy, fly, fly so high. I promise that your baby girl will try not to die. I'll try not to die, try not to cry. Fly, daddy, fly. Fly, daddy, fly.
Fly, daddy, fly. Touch the sky. I promise that your baby girl will try not to die. Try not to die. Try to stay alive. Try not to die.
Fly, daddy, fly.
Edek. Edek.
Yellow star, target from afar.
I asked my mother. Mother, what happened to my father? And my mother told me they had shot my father.
Think about that.
You know, they shot my father, shot my grandmother. My mother died in the ghetto. They killed my brother, who was 7.
7 years old. Think about that.
Edek. A young man called Edek, a Polish Catholic. He hid 14 Jews. Edek. Because in Poland, if they saw somebody hiding Jews, they would shoot them immediately. There were no questions. But Edek is quite an incredible man. He risked his life. I'm forever grateful to him. He risked his life. Edek.
He's a hero.
He's a hero. To hide people. I never knew his surname. I only knew his first name. Edek. He risked his life. Edek. My message is tolerance. To accept people and not to persecute them, not to hate people who are different, who have a different color of the skin, for instance, or a different religion. My hope is that it will make them a little more understanding of minorities. Because we are all human beings.
1932, born a Jew.
We are all human beings.
We are all human beings.
So I'd like to now invite each of you to share some of your thoughts on education, on how can you tell survivor stories if we don't have the survivors with us, either on our in our camps, in our machanot, in our educational poolot, our education activities, or potentially if we go to Poland or any kind of experience abroad. So I'm going to start with you, Becky, if you want to say a few words about that.
Hi. Michael, I just want to congratulate you on a brilliant piece of work.
Thank you.
And I think it really hits on a lot of kind of my principles with Holocaust education. I think the music and the way that it's filmed is so emotive, and it brings something that can be black and white and relegated to like a very distant part of history that doesn't affect us, isn't relevant to us, into colour, into something that is relevant and meets people where they're at. And I think within Habo and within Habonim Dror, that's what we see as the key to Holocaust education. As we get further away from the Holocaust, as Malcolm said, the responsibility is passed to the youth to continue the conversation, to keep it going. And I think that Holocaust education has to include conversations about society and the relations of the different groups within it. It's got to include the build-up. It can't just go straight into the end point. You have to understand the journey. It has to talk about propaganda and bystanding and scapegoating and all of those kind of pieces of the puzzle that allow something as horrendous as the Holocaust to happen. Because whilst I'm interested in the dates and kind of facts side of things, as an educator, I'm much more interested in having conversations with young people about how did this happen and how was it allowed to? How were people capable of normalizing such evil? We do have kind of relative freedom of religion and safety within the UK, and so I think that we have a responsibility to use that freedom and to use this kind of deep connection and understanding of what it means to be persecuted, to help other persecuted ethnic minorities and other international crises that have happened since, like Rwanda and Darfur, and right now with Uyghur Muslims in internment camps in China. That's why we need to keep the conversation going. That's what Holocaust education should center around in order to stay true to the message of never again. We need to understand the social, political, economic contexts that allow this to happen so that it can never happen again. To us or to anybody.
That's really important. Thank you, Becky. I'm going to come to you, Lauren. What are your thoughts?
So first, obviously, I wanted to echo Becky's congratulations to Malcolm for the film that you produced. It's so interesting to see things from such a fresh and vibrant perspective. I think that from looking at the video and also thinking more generally about youth movements today, that there's kind of two prongs that we need to consider. On the one hand, there's how can we create longevity of the stories of people who lived through the Holocaust, which, as Malcolm, you mentioned, like, is something that is going to be more and more challenging due to like the current climate, as well as the kind of time span that we're sort of working with. And I think that part of that is having a range of things that outlive those who were there. And I think that means that we need film, we need written memories and written experiences and different things, because crucially, something that we all experience is that different people learn from different things, and therefore we have a responsibility to have a range of medium through which we can discuss and engage an open conversation with different people, because we have to allow for what people find easier to engage with. And I think the second prong that sort of is echoed completely in the film, and to quote it, it said, my message is tolerance, is what the main character said. And we educate on tolerance in many ways. And I think that tolerance is about bringing the Holocaust into today and bringing it, looking at what are our modern challenges and modern sort of areas where we need to focus on ensuring that we are tolerant, and not just passively tolerant as kind of those bystanders, to use that Holocaust terminology, but like we need to be proactively tolerant, and not only tolerant but inclusive. And I think that on RSY we strive to do that in many ways, looking at particularly trying to provide and create platforms and voices for groups who perhaps in everyday life do not get equal footing. And I think that that's a responsibility that we as the young people of today really have to hold on our shoulders and embrace, and we have to include our whole community when doing that in order to ensure that we are being true to that message and ideal of tolerance.
Your responsibility is to go beyond tolerance. Tolerance means that I tolerate you, I tolerate. Actually, when we make a breakthrough, we go beyond tolerance, we embrace. We actually recognize that somebody who is different enriches our lives. Somebody who is different makes my life better. Somebody who produces music from their own culture, and it moves me, it touches my spirit, improves me and everything. And I think that's the breakthrough that I think, in a way, your generation can make. You can go beyond tolerance. You can teach beyond tolerance, actually, to the next level.
I think the first time that I saw the film, I was like, "You what? Why is that the limit of your message?"
Yeah.
I think that point, it really resonates with me. Thank you. Adam, over to you.
Again, I just want to share my thanks with you, Malcolm, for making that fantastic piece of art. It's something that I think is so important and so needed today in 2020. But our generation, and I say I mean my generation of like this in the 20s brackets, we're the ones who are, I think, at this cusp of where the Holocaust education can get forgotten about. We've just been through a lot of the trips and the our times in our movements of where we're learning about it, and people are coming towards not necessarily the end, but like the near the finish line of their time in these areas. That needs to carry on, in my opinion, and work like this, making movies like this, in ways that are understandable and relatable, are ways that can ignite this education and the willingness to the want to carry on. We have a responsibility as Jews to ensure that this story, this message, isn't just continuing in the Jewish community. This needs to happen around the world with all communities. Messages like this, what you're trying to give through the video, Malcolm, is something that can be transpired throughout the world. We have a responsibility as a human race, I would say, to ensure that we continue telling the story of these people and the tragedies that happened. And there's so much that we can do through new tools like this and within our own organizations and movements and with different generations of people to keep telling these stories in these fun, creative and unique ways and share this around the world so that as many people as possible can take part and really continue this message.
Thanks, Adam. Harry, what are your thoughts?
So just to echo the others, Malcolm, I thought this film was really powerful and amazing. And I think I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier of, or like alluded to, of like the difference between educating on the Holocaust with kind of our Jewish young people and non-Jewish young people. Or for me, I think it goes to our young people who are at Jewish schools and those who are not at Jewish schools. I think perhaps the dichotomy to be drawn that we need to think of ways and like acknowledge that perhaps for us as youth movements, people coming into our spaces are going to be a mixture of people at Jewish schools and non-Jewish schools, and that therefore like their level of knowledge is going to be different, but the way the things that have experienced are going to be really different. And I think this is something that film is quite amazing for, is that it can cut across that kind of dichotomy, that boundary, to be able to educate in a really powerful way for those who have both been to Jewish schools and those who haven't.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Actually, I think we're young Jewish people who go to non-Jewish schools or who go and don't have. I think it's really true in the sense that there can be a kind of almost Holocaust fatigue that sets in as well, or that we take it for granted because we have that. And I did see a real difference actually when sometimes we were showing the film in Jewish schools and non-Jewish schools. For example, if I was in a school in Southeast London, for example, that had a BAME kind of background, that basically there was nobody who was Jewish there. It was literally kind of culturally very, very diverse. the impact was incredible. I mean, there was a couple of things that happened. One, I was often warned beforehand that we'd show the film and maybe we'd have 10 minutes of questions. And invariably, we would still be there an hour and a half later. And that raised something in my mind, which is, do we sometimes underestimate our young people? And again, it's that thing about what are we capable of? Because the engagement was incredible. And it really, it was kind of magical, actually, to see what happened, to see young people wanting to learn about the Holocaust, wanting to learn about Janine and other people like Janine, wanting to know what happened and why it happened. But also every single one of them had something in their lives that they could apply it to, whether it was Rwanda or whether it was, as somebody mentioned, about China with Muslims, whether it was anything. And that they literally saw it as being very, very applicable to things that were happening.
And I think there are two things that I just want to wrap up. One is that we have to be bold in our education. We have to share things that are very, very challenging. On the Reshet website, when I first saw Malcolm's film, I was so inspired by it that I sat down and just wrote and created a whole load of different educational resources. So they're on the Reshet website. Have a look at those. And the last thing I just want to sum up is that Janine's words, for me, the most meaningful words that Janine shared is that we are all human beings. We are all human beings. And that for me works both in our education. We have to think through that each young person that we meet, that we work with, has their own world vision, their own world map. And they have to be inspired and educated in different ways. So we have to work for each human being. But also we have to share our own humanity, our own perspectives of the things that have made a difference to us, the things that have inspired us educationally, and how we want to share that with young people going forward. I just want to thank you. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Harry and Becky and Lauren and Adam for taking time out and sharing your thoughts with us. And I hope you have a very meaningful Yom HaShoah, very, very meaningful day. Thank you.